Alright, so it's been a while, but here I am back with a review, and this time we're working with The Dwarves by Marcus Heitz. And it was published back in 2003, so right around the original Lord of the Rings movie, and that is kind of relevant for when we get into the actual review. It currently, according to Goodreads, was actually published in January of 2003, which is kind of funny, and I don't really believe it, but it might just be a coincidence. It stands at a respectable 4 out of 5 on Goodreads with 13,000 ratings and 900 reviews, so that's actually not bad at all. And this is also the first book in a pentology of the same name, The Dwarves. And I just want to mention it because I think it's funny. In German it's called Die Zwerge, which literally also translates to The Dwarves. So, flawless translation, I guess you can say. I mean, I'm always surprised when you do a direct translation and it works, so hey, good on you, whoever translated this book. I actually don't remember who it is. Anyways, let's talk about the cover. I hate it. It's got ugly, and it's not the fault of the artist, because I do believe the artist in this case, as in many other books, are just doing what they're told. But I don't like this CGI-esque look. I mean, it's probably not CGI, but it really looks like it, and I don't think that's quite the look that you should be going for with your fantasy book. I don't like it at all. So, but as you can see on the spine here, I have read it multiple times. It is actually a book I enjoy quite a lot. Creases everywhere, yellowed pages, everything, all the 9 yards. This book has seen some use. So, let's get right into discussing it. Alright, so I mentioned before that it came out right around when the Lord of the Rings came out, and the reason why I highlight that is because this is a very Tolkien-esque world. It's very clear where Heitz got his inspiration from, and I'm not saying that as a knockdown. Tolkien did amazing work, and I think Heitz definitely managed to put his own spin on the more classic epic fantasy world. But it's definitely clearly inspired by Lord of the Rings. And I mean, especially the way that religion and different cultures play a role, because that's a huge part of Lord of the Rings, because that's a huge part of Tolkien. I'm not saying Marcus Heitz stole a thing or two from Lord of the Rings. I definitely think he got inspired by and made his own stuff. But I do also want to say, in the author's note in the back, he did mention he did not try to reinvent the classic Tolkien-esque dwarves. He just wanted to put his own spin on it. So we will be keeping that in mind. One of the things I then actually do like that he did is the concept of multiple dwarven kingdoms. Instead of just having one race, one kingdom, he has 5 dwarven kingdoms. And it's more like a dwarven empire in the style of like medieval empires in the real world, because they are 5 kings, but they have an emperor above them that's like, this is how we are setting the tone for all 5 kingdoms outside of the world, but we're generally our own except for when we must. And it kind of reminds me of the Holy Roman Empire, except for there's not as much intrigue. Well, there's a lot of intrigue, not as much as infighting in the direct war style. But yeah, it's kind of that vein. Alright, let's talk about Tungdil. Tungdil. It's easier to read than it is to say. Anyways, let's talk about him. I like him. I love him as a character. He's smart, but unaware about the world enough so he can still work as a vessel for us to get everything explained. Which I think is a difficult thing to pull off. Like, you're making your character smart, but they're dumb. Kinda. More like, I used in my notes here, unaware, which I think is a fitting word, because he knows a lot about being book smart, and that's why he gets the nickname Scholar. So yeah. I also love the orcs in this book, because they again are your classic Tolkien fantasy world, World of Warcraft, well, not World of Warcraft actually, but Tolkien-esque fantasy, like early 2000s orcs. Like, they're dumb brutes, but at the same time, they're kinda smart, just unorganized and dumb. Like, again, we're talking about being dumb and smart in different ways, because they clearly know a lot about what's going on, but the same time, like, yeah. So yeah, from just being a pretty standard adventure fantasy book, a lot of time in this book is spent on politics. Like actually slowing down the plot politics, people are sitting around a table discussing or scheming. Like that kind of threw me off a little because it wasn't what I expected. I read it before, but whenever I pick up a fantasy book like this one, I think of it more like a D&D campaign written in a novel style. Like, here's the quest, now go fix it. And it's kind of what it is, but there's a lot of intrigue, and I do like that. And as you can tell, I'm not talking about specific scenes in this book, and the reason for that is I don't think there's any scenes particularly well in the book that like stand out to me. Like, I think the book is better on a micro level than a micro level. And what I mean by that, I think the whole of the book is pretty darn good. But I don't think, like, if you dig down into minute little scenes or details, I don't think it's particularly exceptional. I just think it's an all-round good book that makes the whole of it a good book. And not just, like, specific small parts. However, there were two scenes I did like. So let's talk about those. The first is the Green Glade Massacre. I think that was absolutely brutal, and I loved it about the elf with the umlaut, to distinguish them from normal elves. And I loved the the description of the painting. Like, it was the most beautiful painting in the world on elven skin with elven blood. Like, that's so... Ooh, that's perfect. I love it. I might steal it from my own D&D campaign though. But I love the visual way everything was done there. So yeah. Now the other one I liked is actually the first 4 trials with Gandogar and Tungdel. I thought they were fun, lighthearted moments that showed the weirdness of the dwarves, because none of it were really that relevant for an empire. But and when I read it, I wish we had gotten more about it. But on this other hand, I think working with it in a way where you can, keep the pacing alive, it's probably a good idea. It wasn't more than like 50 or 70 pages or something like that. Like, that's still a lot, but for an 800 plus page book, that's not a lot. So yeah, maybe it's fine that we didn't get much, but on the other hand, I'm like, it could have been fun. But I think pacing wise, it was probably the right decision. And on that note, I do want to highlight the book is aware that the entire story hinges on a accident. Literally, one of the guys comment, this was just pure luck at the final trial were the plot of the book. Of course, there was never a doubt in the plot of the book, but I don't know. I think it's kind of funny that Heights kind of acknowledged that he made the entire thing hinge on an accident. But he didn't make it feel like it was a forced accident though. Like, it didn't feel like that was how it's supposed to be. It definitely felt like it was a coincidence and not just something he went for. So far, do I like this book? I mean, I read it multiple times, so yeah, I do. But I think, like, if you're a fan of Warhammer and Dragonlance and what his name? I have some of his books over here somewhere. R.L. Salvatore, like Forgotten Realms book. Like, if you're into that style of fantasy, and of course Lord of the Rings, then I think you will have quite a lot of fun with it. Especially because your main character isn't a human for once for epic fantasy books. It's a dwarf. It's like usually it's either humans or elves, because they're kind of similar to us, like elves are. But we get a dwarf, and we really get the dwarven feel. So yeah, I think if you're into that type of book, I think you'll have a good time. If not, I don't see you are gonna have fun. But let's go through the rest of the book. Maybe I'll change my mind on it. So I had no idea what entr'acte meant. I don't even know if I pronounced it correctly. So I had to look it up, and it means halftime / pause show. And so in this case, it's the stage show we get to pause the story in the middle of it, and it kind of makes sense. It's a good way of slowing down the story without ruining the pacing, because you could just skip all of this and you'll be relatively fine. But it was pretty good. I do like how it worked. I loved the description of things. really not much happened. Like, it was more of a background to Nodon on how he turned evil, with a lot of what's it called, conjecture, basically. Like, it was never a concrete, this is actually what happened. It was clearly Rodario who tried to, by stories, characters he knows, and just understanding of human behavior and stuff like that, like trying to piece together what might have happened, and apparently that was correct, because the dude is actually a genius. The thing about this book is a lot of characters are really smart and really dumb at the same time. Like, they might be one-dimensional in character traits, especially the dwarves tend to be that way, but all of them are like both smart and dumb in different ways, and it's highlighted a lot and worked with a lot, so I think that's good. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to say. I think it's a good way of giving us the exposition without ruining the pacing. So yeah, pretty good job, pretty interesting. Never seen it before like that, but I guess it's kind of like Haunted Bookstore with the side story. So hey, good on you, Heights, for doing something unique, different, in a fun way. And that's not meant sarcastic at all, actually. I just realized it came off that way. No, good on you. I think that worked really well. I think that was a smart choice. Now let's go to the rest of the story. When I was missing about 100 pages or so, I realized I hadn't written any notes. So most of the section is written where I already read it. Of course, as stated, I've read the book before, but read it again. So with that in mind, I love the additions of the humans to the dwarf team. At first I didn't, but they kind of grew on me. The romance in the book is fine. It isn't like anything over the top, but what it does really well is that it doesn't take away from the story. Like, that's my main complaint when I've been reading a YA novel, is suddenly the only thing the characters can think about is, oh, he's so dreamy, oh, she's so sweet, she's so cute. Like, stop it. Normal people can think more about like the plot and not, oh, he touched my hand. No, you can work. You can work and touch hands without, like, even when you're in love with each other, without it ruining anything. And yeah, I actually think it worked out really, really well. And also, some people might say it came out of nowhere, but I honestly don't think so. And the reason why I don't think so is because we already from very early on in the book learned that Tongdil is very, very much happy for the ladies. And by what I mean here is, like, he, as soon as he sees a female dwarf, he's just like, I'ma tap that. And he gets completely stumped and not able to. And then he sees another female dwarf and he's like, I'ma tap that. And then he sees Belandis, and he's like, I'ma tap that. But he doesn't yet. But he does get a girlfriend. So worth it. Third time's the charm, guys. Alright. So yeah. Also, I like the mirroring to the prologue that we get with Belispor. So the prologue starts, the prologue starts out by having a dwarf, like the Dwarven Kingdom thinks the fifth kingdom, get attacked by orcs, and they're betrayed by a dwarf from the third kingdom. The third kingdom are the bad guys here, not the main bad guys, but they're like discussed bad guys. And then here in this section here we get the second kingdom is attacked by dwarves, and a third ling, that's what they're called when they're from third kingdom, a third ling betrays them, and so they lose the war. And I think that's like a great mirroring we get. Like, I know it's a direct one-to-one thing, but the fact that he did it actually works out really, really well, because usually you wouldn't do that. Usually you would let the prologue be on its own as a establishing the world or establishing an inciting incident for what's going on. But in this case, no. We actually straight up get a mirroring. Like, the same thing happened twice. We didn't learn from the first time. I like that. So also something I like is when people die, they come back and they are evil. That sounded very macabre. No, I like that, but what I really like is we then get, through established lore already, that dwarves are very stubborn. We get that they can overcome this because they, like, when you come back, you know what you're doing is evil, but you feel like you really, really want to. But the dwarves are so stubborn. They're like, no, we know orcs are bad. We wanna kill the orcs because they are bad. So we do it anyways. Even though we feel like we don't want to, even though we feel like we want to kill dwarves. And I like that a lot. I think that is amazing. My only gripe is, for the fifthlings, it took them forever to learn to control themselves. But for Gandogar, it took him not that long. Not Gandogar, what the fuck is his name? The Mason, I'm gonna call him Mason. The names are insane, like very Tolkien-esque in that way too. Like the names make no sense. To me, at least. The Mason, like he just, oh, wow, I can control myself now. We're good now. But it isn't like a huge story deal. Well, kinda isn't. Like I can excuse it away. It's a minor complaint. I think it was a bit too easy for him to go full on good. But that's fine. And like most books, this book spends the last like 50 or so pages killing the bad guy. The book is, I said 800 earlier, it's apparently only about 650 pages of, well, it's 700 pages because it's 650 pages of adventure to forging Keenfire and 50 pages of killing Nodon. And I kinda don't like that as much. I kinda want it to be a sequel where they take on the bad guy, but I can also see the pacing be a little weird, because we've seen them travel so much that it should be relatively easy, and we learn that all his troops are like in one spot, so of course the tons and so on are relatively undefended. So it's like, it would be very short story, but I feel like writing like a 200-page book, like as the sequel, would both make sense and not make sense, if that makes sense. I make no sense. I honestly think it probably is the right decision to end him in this book, just to get a finishing properly, but I'm also like, it's a little too short of a time we spent fighting him. So, the dwarves is very Tolkien-esque, as I stated multiple times, and as stated all the way in the beginning, he did not set out to reinvent the dwarves of the fantasy world, and he didn't plan on it, and he didn't do it. He just wanted to make a story where they can stand on their own, and he did that. And I feel like it was really, really good. It's not a marvel of literature. It's not like high praise, whatever. It's good. That's kind of all it needs to be. It's a long book, it's slow, and you kind of have to already like this style of fantasy. Like, I love a good adventure story. So, like, if you're into Tolkien, I think you might find this book funny and interesting on its own. But also, if you just read Tolkien, I think you'll be disappointed, because this book isn't doing as much unique. So, it feels like he did a D&D campaign and wrote it into a book and kept actually a lot of the D&D banter in it. And it felt very organic and very fun, but at the same time, at times it was a little odd. So it's definitely a product of his time, and I don't think it's bad. Would I recommend this book though? Again, as I stated earlier, if you like D&D, Dragonlance, R.A. Salvatore's Forgotten Realms, and like adventure books in general, I think you would enjoy it. If you're more into the modern epic fantasy, like I'm so bad with names. Let's see, where is it? My phone just rang, that's why. Like Empire of the Vampire, probably, but it wasn't the one of... what was I thinking of? I don't remember now, but like more modern epic fantasy, like Brandon Sanderson books actually. If you're more into that, I don't think you're gonna like this as much, but who knows, maybe, we'll see. Anyways, leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and next time we will be taking on The Blood Mirror by Brenda Wick.